Rajaditya, the eldest son of Karnataka, met the Karnataka army at Takolam. Bhutuga managed to kill Rajaditya and the Karnataka army captured Kanchi. It is said that Karnataka fled to Ceylon. Krishna celebrated this signal success by assuming the epithet of Kanchiam Tanjayam Kanda, the conqueror of Kanchi and Tanjore, and rewarded Bhutuga with the governorship of Banavasi, the Belval, the Pulagar, the Krisukad and the Beganad. Krishna then continued his victorious march to further south and reduced the Cheras and the Pandyas. He occupied Ramesvaram and set up a pillar of victory there. He also accepted the voluntary submission of the Ceylonese king. As long as Krishna was alive, Karnataka was in exile and made no attempt whatsoever to recapture the Chola territory from the Rashtrakutas. But the glory of the Rashtrakutas did not last long. After Krishna, Katiga and Karka too ruled up to 973 AD. The Paramaras of Malva under Harsha Siaka invaded the Rashtrakuta dominion and sacked their capital. Meanwhile Talpa II, who was waiting for an opportunity, took advantage of the weakness of the successors of Krishna III, drove out the Rashtrakutas and established the dynasty of the Chalukyas of Kalyani. The last representative of the imperial Rashtrakutas was Krishna III's grandson Indra IV, who fled to the Ganga kingdom. Narasimha II Ganga made a vain attempt to restore Indra but failed and committed suicide at Bankapura. Indra also lived up to 982 near Sravanabelagola and died there. Once again the Chalukyas regained their supremacy over the Deccan. Administration. The administrative system under the Rashtrakutas remained more or less the same as at the time of the Western Chalukyas. It was an absolute and benevolent monarchy, regard being had to the welfare and happiness of the people. The existence of council of ministers and the village popular assemblies acted as checks on the absolute authority of the king. Succession to the throne developed from father to son. The dominion of the Rashtrakutas was divided into Rashtras or Mandalams, Vijayas and Bhuktas. Rashtra was the biggest unit of the empire and was governed by Rashtrapati. Visaya, corresponding roughly to a modern district, was in charge of an officer known as Visayapati. Bhukti or Tehsil was governed by Bhogapati or Bojika. As usual, village was the lowest unit of administration. As regards the feudatory provinces, some were governed by the representatives of the emperor. Those that were ruled by the feudatory chiefs enjoyed complete autonomy. Social and economic condition. The Dharmasastras of the Rashtrakuta period and the accounts of the Arab writers help us to form a picture of the society during this period. There were 4 castes and a number of other social groups. There was a tendency among the major castes to subdivide themselves into high and low. The new Dharmasastra regulations permitted the first 3 castes to adopt occupations of castes next to them in adverse circumstances. A section of the Brahmanas followed the usual duties. But others accepted offices, civil and military, in the state. Some took to Vaisya and Kshatriya occupations. When they adopted occupations other than their own, they were liable to pay taxes. There were also 2 classes among Kshatriya, Sat Kshatriyas, subkufriyas of the Arab writers, and ordinary Kshatriya. The ruling class and the nobles were included in the first category. The ordinary Kshatriya, in the nature of things, could not practice Vedic studies. They were either traders or agriculturists. The Vaisyas also did not remain as a single community. They also neglected Vedic studies and were reduced to the status of the Sudras. The period witnessed great improvement in the position of the Sudra. The Bhakti movement led by Nayanars and Alvars, which preached the footing equality of man with man, narrowed down the gulf between the high and low castes. Though the Sudra was not still permitted to read the Vedas, he became eligible for smarta practices. Many of the taboos stood him in good stead. He became rich by the pursuit of agriculture, trade and industry. He was enlisted in the army and some of them were military leaders and petty rulers. The untouchables had come to be excluded from the mainstream of life. Among other social groups that were held in low esteem, mention may be made of shoemakers, bamboo workers, fishermen, washermen, sweepers, etc. When compared to the previous period, the only improvement in the position of woman was that her right to inherit the property of her husband was slowly recognized.